leave chance for any questions and so forth you may have. And Representative Rhonda Fields, if you want to wave, we just introduced everybody here. And I will go ahead and start us off quickly. You'll recall this is the time of year, we're not in the legislative session yet. We had talked last time about all the interim committees and task forces that are going on that cover a whole bunch of different subjects, even though we're not technically in session. And we are going into a time period where everyone's going to be getting their bills ready, have different ideas on things that they want to be working on. And now remains a very good time to give input on any state legislation that you might like to see addressed. And we have pulled some ideas out of this community before. I know some of us right now are following up on funding, on bed space issues, taking a look at HOA issues. There's some questions for those who have been involved in the probate court system. Constituents that have been impacted, and so I know as a delegation we've been looking into all different kinds of ideas that have come from you, and we will continue to do that. So the main thing I think I want to say right now is that if possible, share any of your bill ideas or priorities you would like us to be working on before December 1st if you can. The sooner we do that, the more we can research that and so forth. And some of you may be used to now the fact that we have political trackers that are joining us on the town hall. So just know that there are people here that are recording what is happening while we're doing this. The time we're doing right now is basically, there's 3 waves of bills where we can come forward. So the very first wave, you really want as much in and given back to us by December 1st as possible. But we do have 2 second waves for what's there, and sometimes you can get a deadline extension. So don't ever let it stop you from coming forward with an idea, but I would just say that now's the best time to really do that. And with that, I think I'm just going to let the rest of our colleagues give an update. We have different, so I'm from the Senate, these guys are all in different committees that are in the House, and I know are already working on different things that are near and dear to each of them. And so I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to my colleagues, and thank you guys for joining us.
Well, welcome everybody. I don't know if I've met everybody in the room. I see a lot of familiar faces, but I'm Sue Ryden, and I represent House District 36. And House District 36 basically goes from Colfax down to Smoky Hill Road and from Chambers east. And then there's a cutout there that Representative Buckner represents in House District 40. But a lot of things have been going on during the interim. I sit on both the Audit Committee and the Health Exchange Oversight Committee. And I think you've all heard that the Health Op, which was the new business model co-op, has, let's say, is going to probably go away. At least they will not be able to operate on the exchange because they had some things happen where they were promised federal funds for kind of a safety net sort of thing, and the federal funds did not come through, and the Division of Insurance decided it was just too risky for the consumers to have those policies in the event they couldn't be able to be paid on health care charges. So that's gone, and that was anywhere from 45 to 100,000 people, depending on what kind of group they were in. So if you were in that group, I don't know, did anybody buy the health op? Okay. So a couple things about that. One is that they were going to be raising their rates about 20% anyhow. They had really lowered rates, and it had created a very competitive atmosphere, but perhaps maybe too aggressive. That's what some people were thinking. So at any rate, everyone who has any policy is encouraged to go on the exchange and go shopping again this year, because things change every year, and different companies bring different plans and different pricing. So it's a good idea to at least go there and shop and to see what else is out there compared to what you already have. How many have been on the exchange? Several. And if you're covered by a small business, a lot of new rules are going into effect for businesses this next year, and we are really encouraging people, if they don't already, to use a broker, an insurance broker, and that's individual or group, because the brokers get paid by the insurance companies. It doesn't cost the individual anything. and you get really good advice from people who know and understand insurance, which is not exactly like buying an airline ticket, although some people portray that it would be that simple. And so I encourage you, before you do anything, you go on the website. They now have a button that you can click to get yourself to a list of brokers who are available, and I encourage you to do that because it might make your life a whole lot easier. Also working on, there's a new CEO now at the Health Exchange, and he has been working with them for about a year now as an interim, and we think that he's going to be really good. His name is Kevin Patterson, and he has a lot of IT background as well as understanding how government works, which is a really important thing to have. And so we're hopeful that the exchange will continue to get better, customer service will continue to improve, the customer experience will also improve. So those are their main goals. But if you want to know anything about what we're doing on that committee or what the exchange itself is doing, they have their own board. You can go online and find all those things. A couple things I'm working on in the interim. A number of people, a lot of our constituents are anxiously awaiting the results of the rulemaking that's going on with the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. And this revolves primarily around local authority and where the local governments interface with the state and what kinds of responsibilities and authority they have. And the rules that they're making now came from the task force that the governor set up last year. And so on Monday the 16th and Tuesday the 17th, there will be hearings by the CO06 to go over the rules that they're planning. And you can go to their website now and see the draft of those rules and see what you think. They primarily are focused on the large sort of industrial developments that they're building now. This is a new thing in the last few years where now that they can do a whole lot of wells off of one pad, now the gathering equipment, the storage equipment, the operating equipment, they're consolidating onto a very large site. What used to be one little well pad sitting out in the pasture with a pipe coming out of it is now this sort of really big industrial complex, and it has a lot of people worried who live near those sites. So those rules are coming. We'll see how that goes. I'm not hearing anything about legislation, but I think after we see what they are doing and what rules they pass, then we'll take a look and see whether we think we need to do anything else. HOA is always a big issue for a lot of folks. How many live in an HOA? How many live in one but don't know it? Until something happens, and then you suddenly realize that, oops, I don't have as many rights as I thought I did. So I'll be bringing back the HOA bill that I had last year that will be implementing some of the recommendations that the HOA office made 2 years ago when they did their study of what's going on elsewhere in the country and some of the things that they think we should be doing here. And one of those is providing more information about mediation on issues. So, and we aren't hearing anything about construction defects this year. A lot of the local communities have taken that matter into their own hands, and it's probably just a matter of time before someone brings some kind of lawsuit to test the constitutionality of those ordinances, and then we'll see what happens there. But for now, we don't think that's going to be a big issue coming up. So the main big thing I've been working on and continue to work on is our Veterans Nursing Home at Fitzsimmons. And this is a state facility, and it was originally designed to be a 3-part assisted living, transitional housing, nursing home. We got the nursing home. It's a great facility. The people there just love it there, and everything is wonderful, except the other 2 parts have never been built. And a lot of that was from just changeover and people. They kind of lost their champions for having that continue. And so we're trying to bring that back and get that back on the timetable so that we can finish building that facility at Fitzsimmons. And it's, I think I've told you guys before that we lost 2 of our members off the advisory committee this year who passed away, and they were veterans, and they have been working on this project for 20 years. And so we think it's time that we finish it and really provide what we've been promising to our veterans, and being November and Veterans Day month, I think it's appropriate that we really start giving this a big push. So I will stop there, let my colleagues fill you in on what they're doing, and then we'll have some Q&A.
Thank you, Representative. I'm Representative Rhonda Fields. I represent House District 42, which is in Arapahoe County, the north side of Aurora. I'm also running for Senate District 29. And I can tell you, as I'm knocking on doors and campaigning for Senate District 29, what I'm hearing from families is their most important issue is education. Families are telling me that they're sending their best kids to school, and they want to make sure that their kids are getting the best quality education that they can get. And they would like to be able to get that best education by having their child walk to school. You may have saw in the Aurora Public, no, it was in Denver Post. I think it was about maybe 3 weeks ago that the Aurora Public School District was highlighted, I guess you can say. And it was indicated in that report some fail points that we have with our Aurora Public School system. So what I have been doing along with parents and administrators and teachers in Aurora Public Schools is really looking at what they have been doing. So I believe that the report was not balanced because the balance didn't kind of report on the progress and the activity that the Aurora Public School has already been doing to address some of their challenges. And so the report was kind of short-sighted. But I can tell you that is a major concern because no one wants to send their kid to a school that's not performing well. And so what the administration and the school and the community is doing, there's a high effort as relates to community engagement in reference to what's going on here. Because that exposure is not a blanket statement across all of Aurora Public Schools. Many of the parents that I talk to believe, and they have confirmed to me, that these are great schools. I mean, we have some really great schools in Aurora Public Schools and also in Cherry Creek, but there are some that are struggling. So it's taking a look at what are the areas for improvement in those schools that are struggling. I had an opportunity to attend a meeting that was hosted by the superintendent at Central High School, which is one of the schools that has been identified as an area that needs improvement. In attending that meeting, there was a panel up front. Parents were in the back, so it was really an opportunity to engage community, families, and administration with that school. And what I saw there, that there was, there's a lot of diversity in Aurora Public Schools. And so in that meeting, it was really good to see that they had translators there. They had translators there that were helping the parents understand what was being said. And then when the parents were bringing their concerns and issues to the administration, they had a translator just to report back on what their concerns were. So it was a great engagement as it relates to what's going on with students and the families in the districts that where their schools are struggling. So we have work to do. But I can tell you a major concern for me is what can we do to plug the leak? I think it was on the front page, 5 out of 5 will graduate. Well, you know, that's not good enough. Every kid needs to be, every kid has a promise. Every kid needs to be transitioned either to a career or to college, and we need to find out what we can do to be much more successful at that. So I'm working within the community to find out what we can do to kind of improve our schools, because that's a concern that my constituents and families are reporting to me that's important to them. Another area that I've been working on, I've been appointed to be on a task force. This task force is to address substance abuse in the state of Colorado. It is facilitated by the Attorney General. I participated in this town hall, this task force on Friday. And what I was told at this meeting is that there is an increase of use of heroin right here in our state. And they also reported out on the increase of kids using marijuana. So kids are getting into their parents' stash, and there's also a trend as it relates to the increase of people using prescription drug as a way of doing whatever they need to do. But people are getting into these drugs. Either it's marijuana, or either it's heroin, or either it's prescription drugs. And it was reported that sometimes even if people are doing open houses, people are going into people's cabinets, in their drawers, and they're stealing prescription drugs. The prescription drug is considered a trend that we need to address in the state of Colorado. We've done some things in the state to address that. But what was most interesting about what I heard is that what we need to be doing in the state to protect kids from getting access to marijuana. Because what kids are saying through research and surveys is that they believe that it's okay to smoke marijuana. They don't believe there's any harm. So there's already grants and programs that are going on out there that says that because adults have decided that there's no harm when you smoke marijuana, kids believe that because if it's okay for adults to do it, then for me as a child, I can access it. And what happens with this research that's being shared with us, and we might see some legislation on that, is there is harm. There is harm when you start smoking marijuana when you're at 4th grade, or 10th grade, or 8th grade. And so there's already a team of people looking at the strategic processes and programs that we can put in place to target 4th graders. Because they're saying at 4th grade, that's when they might start thinking about smoking. Then there's another strategy that says after they're 4th grade, you start at 6th grade, and then you get at 10th grade. Because once they start to introduce themselves to some kind of drugs, then sometimes they do start to experience other types of drugs. But there is harm, based on the research, with brain development. If you start using drugs early, it could cause some serious delay in your own development, in that kid's development. So we're looking at that as a state. So finally, I'd like to close with just some thoughts about November. As you know, November is a season of giving thanks. And when I think about giving thanks, there's 2 things that come to mind. We all know that November is, well, next week. It's Veterans Day. My dad was a veteran, and he served this country for, 30 years. And so when I think about all the veterans that have served this country, I want you to consider giving thanks to anyone that has served our country. Not only the veterans, but also those families, because they made some tremendous sacrifice to our community and to our nation. The third thing that I have regarding November, of course, is Thanksgiving Day. You know, there's a lot of families that still struggle with food insecurity. Because I represent COFAX, I see people who struggle every day with finding out where their next meal is going to come from. And oftentimes that has to do with women and families and kids not knowing where their next meal is going to come from. So I know that if you have an opportunity to donate a canned good or a coat or a sock to someone who's less privileged, then I would say extend that kind of generosity to someone else that doesn't have the same privilege that maybe we all have the opportunity to have that privilege to live without having the kind of problems that they do. So that's what I've been up to. I have lots of bills that I'm working on. You've heard about them all. They're still in the process of trying to make sure that we have all the stakeholders together to make sure that whatever we introduce is good public policy based on the input from the community. Thank you.
Hello, I am State Representative Janet Buckner, HD 40. It's nice to see such a nice turnout, and I think as the year progresses and the first part of next year going all the way through, we'll keep seeing a big increase in the amount of people coming, but we really appreciate your coming out. And we always say, tell a friend, so next time bring somebody with you so we can even have bigger discussions. When I was last month when I introduced myself, I see some new faces here, so I'll give you a little bit of background. I filled the vacancy of my late husband, John W. Buckner, and I'm proudly doing that. As you all know, he was very passionate about education, as am I. I have a degree in education. I was a speech pathologist and language development specialist, so I worked with kids K through 12 for most of my education career. And then after I raised my 3 kids, when I went back to work, they wouldn't let me come back as a speech pathologist because I had not completed my master's degree. So I had to find a job. So I ended up going into medical sales, which was really intriguing because I took all the courses that doctors take and nurses take, and I ended up selling medical equipment to hospitals and ambulatory centers and ended up being a national trainer so I could use my education, and also taught doctors how to use medical equipment in the operating room. So I've got a nice background that's really going to help me in the legislature. I've been assigned to the Education Committee, which I'm really excited about, and I've also been assigned to Health Insurance and Environment Committee, which is really going to be interesting. This year, what I'm hearing from the Education Committee, we're going to be hearing a lot about funding for the schools, which is really, really important, because my belief is, and I want to hear from all of you, we want to make sure that we're not losing important programs in the school. We also want to make sure that the schools don't lose teachers, because the classroom sizes as they are now are not as small as we would like for them to be, so we can't afford to lose instructors or teachers in the schools. I met with Harry Bull, who was the superintendent of Cherry Creek Schools, 2 weeks ago. We had an hour and a half long discussion about the schools and what they really need and what's really important. And that really opened my eyes as a former educator, and my husband used to work for Cherry Creek Schools. So Harry Bull gave me a list of really important issues that we should make sure we cover at the legislature this year. So since I'm on that education committee, I will make sure that we really pay attention to the most important aspects of the schools. Also, Monday, a lot of us are meeting with Rico Munn, the superintendent of schools for APS, and his leadership team is going to make a presentation, so we'll get the real facts of what's really going on in Aurora Public Schools, not just hearsay or the way it's interpreted, but what's really going on. So that meeting will be Monday, and we'll be able to report back to you next month about that meeting with APS. Last week, I went to my first National Conference of State Legislators, and it was in San Diego, and the emphasis was health policy. I'll be honest with you, my head was spinning. There was so much information given, but the recurring theme that we kept hearing over and over for the 3 days we were there was how we can reduce the cost of medicine and medical care. It was just unbelievable. We had doctors speaking to us and other healthcare professionals, and we all gave input as to what we can do in all of the different states to improve the quality of care without the price that's getting so astronomical. One thing that we talked about with the pharmaceutical companies when we were there was the ridiculous high cost of prescriptions and how we can lower those costs. So since I'm on the health insurance and environment committee, I will be able to give input, and I'm still studying all of that information. And I might be new, but I'm taking in a lot of information, and I'm very eager to do the best I can to represent all of you. So once again, you have to let me know what your issues are, but I've been given quite a few and learned a lot at this meeting last week. I'm on the HOA board of my neighborhood. Little did I know I would be a state legislator. So I know, and Senator Morgan has an amazing background in HOA, and I've already asked her a lot of questions, and I understand you do too. So I'm going to be calling on you to help me, because now that I'm on this HOA board as a legislator, they're looking at me totally different. So I'm going to need your help with that as well. Last week, no, was it 2 weeks ago? All of us at this table received this award, and this is the A-List 2015 Leadership Aurora Award, and I was proud to accept this this award for my husband, and everyone here at this table and some others received this award, which was really exciting. It was really exciting to be noticed and thanked for what we did. As you all know, the Gaylord project was approved in Aurora. It's a 1,500 room resort, and it's going to bring in a lot of revenue, a lot of jobs. The place is unbelievable, the renderings are. And at this dinner that we went to, there were 2,000 people there. And I was fortunate to sit with the developer, Rita, the Rita Development Company, and got a lot of information. He's a really good guy, family-owned business, and this is going to be quite the resort. Also, I was lucky enough to sit with David Marriott. Yes, David Marriott. He's only 42 years old and a real family man, and he is so excited about this project and what it's going to do for Aurora. But it's not just Aurora. I see this as a win-win for the entire surrounding area, because when Aurora wins, we all win. So this is a real exciting development for all of us, but this award really was something special. The other thing I wanted to tell all of you, I've said this before and I will just keep saying this over and over, if I don't hear from you, I don't know what you really want, and I really want to represent you as best I can as the legislator. I have my own ideas. I really believe that collaboration is so crucial. I don't want to be at the legislator and just convince people about what I want. I want to hear what all of you want. And even though we're House District representatives, we represent the whole state of Colorado. So we're making decisions for everyone. So I guess whether you're in my House District or not, I want to hear from you, just like all of these ladies. So that's my mantra. I'm going to stick to it, and I want to hear from you. I have my business cards up here, and you can always go online to contact me, and I will do my best to get back to you as quickly as I can and give you the best information that I can. I'm still learning, but I think I'm doing pretty well on that learning curve so far, ladies, and I have them to back me up as well. So thank you so much, and let me hear from you.
Thank you. Up to you guys. Are there any events going on in the community that you want to share, let people know about, and any suggestions on what you would like to see addressed in the legislature? I see Dela and I see Lori, and then we'll take it from there. Dela, go ahead.
Okay, I did talk about this before, probably in the middle of summer, but I am particularly interested in what's coming up in terms of drones and personal privacy. You know, we're really on the cusp. I expect at Christmas time, a lot of private individuals are going to have their little toy drones to go and hover over the neighborhood here and there and everywhere. And we don't have, as a country, we don't have any rules regarding what our rights are as private citizens. Now, we've had safety rules in terms of the FAA can come in with government drones or with anybody's drones that bother the FAA flight. They can legislate. They can enforce rules there. You also have the drones. Most of the drones have been in the hands of government type officials, so they've operated by their own rules. But now we have hobbyists that are playing with the drones, and so I want privacy from noise going on overhead, surveillance going on overhead. I can see this becoming a problem regarding stalking. And so I can see big problems coming with this, and the way to get to it is to legislate now.
So, great question. Some of you may have followed the last couple of years where there have been attempts and then they kind of collapsed on their own weight of what was going through on drones. Dale is right. These are becoming absolutely pervasive everywhere. And there's a couple different threads to what we're dealing with. And our current law sometimes has issues like safekeeping toms, there's some privacy rights, but the privacy laws we have in place right now really weren't written necessarily with this technology in mind. So one issue with drones is through the criminal arena on warrantless searches. So you shouldn't really have any weaker standard about requiring probable cause before you get a warrant. This country was not founded on perpetual and warrantless searches of our citizens. And so there's one, which is the law enforcement aspect of what it can be used when and still protect your Fourth Amendment rights. Two is private, and that can either be individuals or companies on that. So we live in an era where people love collecting data about everybody. And the civil side of this, or the non-criminal side of this, we generally work in areas of informed consent on your information and unless you're sort of knowingly putting things out in the public sphere. In all of our case law on this before, there are places that have been respected as private for a long time that are now going to be challenged because we have access to zero in literally on people's backyards, into their homes, into their private gathering places, and into their communities, and our current laws really aren't well equipped for that. And then what we saw in some of the, I will just give you a little bit of the background on what happened with some of these bills. When we tried to put some protections in on the criminal side, we saw law enforcement come in and start lobbying against those protections. They basically want as broad an access as possible to be able to use this for surveillance, to charge and convict. We saw a lot of businesses that see, you may have even heard about delivery, like Amazon and others that are thinking like, hey, we've got a new delivery vehicle in here, we can use drones for doing that. And so we saw some business groups basically not pushing against the idea of having any kind of regulation on there, because then people are staying away to basically make money on these. And then as far as citizen to citizen privacy on here, it's essentially silent, and frankly there isn't really an advocacy group out there that's advocating for ordinary people's privacy rights. So from my perspective, I'm going to oversimplify, but from my perspective, I think if it's criminal, it needs to meet the Fourth Amendment standard of probable cause and a warrant before you're invading someone's privacy. And if it's civil, it should have informed consent to access, use, and redistribute any of your private information if it's done without your consent. That is where I would draw those lines. We have, and for those of you who weren't here when Dela brought this up last month on there are similar people, Senator Newell, who also has a slice of Aurora on this, has been working on this issue. There has been bipartisan interest of people who are concerned about privacy rights, and there has also been bipartisan opposition by the people who would like to get access to this information in sort of an unfettered way. So stay tuned. What we saw last year is multiple bills and conflicting bills. In my opinion, the bill that came through the end of the session wound up doing more to officially weaken privacy rights. It started off trying to grant it, and then the list of exceptions where they were just saying, hey, this is per se okay, wound up being worse than the current law. And so you have to be careful on bills like that where everyone started from this point of needing to do privacy protection, but at the end of the day you can wind up with a bill that basically explicitly gives permission to violate people's privacy, and I don't want that anyway. So that is a little bit of an update on drones. It won't go from, we don't ever know 100% who is planning and doing what work on what bill until it's introduced and it becomes public. So at this point, when we hear from colleagues, it's very informal, conversational, but I would be surprised if we didn't see more than one competing bill coming back out on drones. And as we do our town halls on this, we will try and keep you alerted about when the opportunities are to weigh in, when there's different drafts, and maybe that's a helpful framework just so you see the history on where that's done too. And I also saw Lori's hand go up next.
Thank you. Three things. First of all, next Thursday at 6:30 at the municipal building in Aurora, there is an HOA forum. They will be talking about HOA issues, and I plan to attend that. I'm not quite sure what else is going to be covered, but have to go and find out. Secondly, on HOAs, I know there are a lot of discussions, legislative, whatever, about the construction defects. I think the problem is get back to the basics. Build a quality product to begin with, and you don't have to worry about construction defect laws. And I have been to the Aurora City Council. I have voiced my opinion on these builders, that the cities or whomever has control of, they don't make them finish the development. I mean, you go in there with a plan, a plat, a map, your declarations, and it says exactly what this community is supposed to look like when it's finished. And then you get another builder in there that takes over from the previous declarant. They get all the rights, the privileged development rights, declarant rights, etc. And then they say, oh, we don't have to do this. I bought into a gated community, and the builder there now, Century, is saying they don't have to finish it. Well, yeah, you do. you came in and took over. And I'm really struggling with getting the city of Aurora to enforce that. I think the cities need to have much stricter inspections. And I realize they're gonna have to rewrite probably a lot of their laws on that. But when you go out and, you know, if you've ever known anybody or lived in the Century, or maybe a lot of other builders are the same way, these houses are not ready to be closed on. And yet the builders are forcing you to close with the promises, oh, we'll fix it, you know, no problem. We have people in our development who live there for over 2 years, cannot get their warranty work done. So it's a real problem with building a quality building to begin with, and I think we have got to get stricter inspections of going in and saying, no, we're not gonna give you a CO because it's not done. And then thirdly, on education, I understand where Rhonda's coming from, that a lot of people blame it on the schools.